So this battle report pits my new Demons of Chaos army versus an Empire force. It's going to be a 1750 point pitched battle with terrain set up as per the normal rulebook. Now I noticed when I was going through these pictures that I didn't get any good pictures of the battlefield as a whole, and these pictures were a little bit closer in than my last battle report. So hopefully my narration will help it from being too confusing and allow people to still understand what's going on. So let's go ahead and get into the Empire forces and their deployment. Okay, so starting from the right, we have a unit of 9 Inner Circle Knights with full command. Next to those, we have 4 Demigryph Knights with full command as well. Behind that is the Archlector on the War Altar of Sigmar. Now, my opponent didn't realize that when you put someone on a chariot that you only use the chariot's armor save, so he did spend some unnecessary points on armor for the Archlector, but also gave him the Berserker Sword, the Dawnstone, and a Potion of Foolhardiness, in addition to the horn that makes it cause terror. And then just to the side of that, we see the Imperial Great Cannon. And this is his entire right flank as I'm looking on it. And I can't tell whether it's already been placed, but the Inner Circle Knights will have with them a level 1 Battle Wizard with the Lore of Light, who's going to be on a warhorse in there. I guess he was aiming for kind of a mini Council of Light, as he'll have another level 1 of light in the next couple pictures. It seems like he was focusing on the War Altar being the one casting the banishment from him, and the other 2 simply powering it. Okay, and between the river and the tower there, we have a unit of 20 State Troop Halberdiers with 2 7-man archer detachments, so 1 ahead and 1 behind the building there. We also have in the center of this unit his second level 1 light mage, as well as a witch hunter with the sword of striking, the gambler's armor, and the other trickster's shard. Ideally this was going to be his second main combat unit, but I think between where he's putting the detachments and the terrain there, he's kind of trapping himself in. So this shows the entire Empire side after deployment. Not a lot in the way of different units, but some pretty strong ones. I'm definitely concerned about the Demigryph Knights, and the Inner Circle Knights can pack some punch, particularly if he can get around and get into my flank. I think the biggest thing is I'm going to have a lot more units than he is, and I think the river may end up causing him some problems, or at very least I hope it does. Now, because I'm just starting my Demons army, I do have a few proxies in here which I don't normally like using. The first of which is here on the right. That's a Corpse Cart, which is a stand-in for a Seeker Chariot of Slaanesh, just the normal one, not the Exalted. There to protect my right flank. Next thing you see is a unit of 20 Demonettes of Slaanesh. And the one painted figure in there is a Herald of Slaanesh that I'm using. She has the Always Strikes First locus, as well as 2 lesser gifts. And for this game, the lesser gifts were the Multiple Wounds 2, and the other one I traded out for the Sword of Might to give her +1 strength. So she'll be 5 strength, armor piercing, with multiple wounds too. So hopefully that can give that unit some punch that typically the Slaanesh units lack. So I'm kind of hoping this to be my big damage doing unit. And I'm hoping I can figure out some way to help it get through the knights and the Demigryph Knights. Okay, and the Slaanesh love continues with my general, the Mask of Slaanesh. Next to her are a unit of 6 Succubi minis that I use in this army for Chaos Furies. Behind that is a Soul Grinder. It is equipped with the Phlegm Bombardment, which lets it act like a stone thrower. And I'm testing out the Mark of Nurgle on it this time, just to see if that might help it survive in combat a little better. Next to those Chaos Furies is a unit of 15 Demonettes with full command. Next to that is an Iron Blaster that is standing in for my second Seeker Chariot of Slaanesh. And right behind there is the only source of magic in this army, the Blue Scribes of Zenich. I figured with the punch that I have, I wasn't really going to need a whole lot of magic, and I really like the Blue Scribes model, so I guess it was time to see how it actually performs in the field. Still, in hindsight, still not entirely sure about it, but it is a cool model, and it helped me do a few cool tricks in the battle, as we'll see. And then protecting my left flank, I have 5 Seekers of Slaanesh with full command, even though they're not, the riders are not done, so it's kind of hard to tell that that's what's there. Ultimately, as you'll see, didn't much matter, but there's that. Oh, and just so there's no confusion, that white square with the skeletal looking model on it is actually our stand-in for a charnel pit piece of terrain. Didn't come up in the battle, but just wanted to try and be as clear as possible. And last but not least, we have 3 bases of Nurglings that are scouting just outside of 12 inches from that archer detachment behind the building. I was hoping to put them there to kind of make my opponent think twice about advancing his troops and leaving me a straight line to that great cannon, which could cause my Soul Grinder some problems. So Empire got the first turn, and this is after movement on the first turn. The river basically stopped the Demigryphs from moving up too far. Turns out it was a necrotic ooze, so he would have to take dangerous terrain tests if he charged upon it, but would give him poison. The Knights as well didn't really want to go forward until they had figured out what that water was, so they moved up a little bit, but were not willing to commit this early on in the game, although that somewhat reserved attitude doesn't hold for too terribly long. And then on this side of the river, that rear detachment goes ahead and moves into the building. The Halberdiers, I guess, were pretty concerned about the Nurglings, so they did a swift reform just to make sure I wasn't going to do anything sneaky to their flank. And I think the other archers may have moved up, but if they did, it was by very, very little. My opponent seems to be wanting to play a more defensive game, and making me come to him, which I can't really fault him for, as with as much Slaanesh as I have in this army, I'm very, very fast, and very able to capitalize on any sort of openings that he produces in his flanks. So I think his idea was to keep a tighter formation and give me a little bit less room to squeeze around for those sweet flank attacks that really Slaanesh needs, because the Slaanesh demons lack a lot of those higher strength attack options. Okay, so shooting from the Empire on this side of things has the archer detachment inflict a single wound to the Nurglings. So, I mean, he doesn't really have a whole lot to throw at me here, so I was kind of surprised he got the 1 wound. But since I was coming for those archers anyway, doesn't really change my plans at all. And so my opponent whiffed his first cannon shot, just didn't manage to make it into my units, so it let me start Demon turn 1. And obviously, first thing I was going to do was run those Nurglings right into that tower. Wanted to try and get the archers out of there before they caused too much trouble with my softer units that were about to come forward. And come forward they did. As you see, pretty much everything advanced. The Seekers got right up in the face of that archer detachment. My chariots held back a little bit, figuring that the Seekers might get crushed, and prepped for a countercharge. My Chaos Furies went just to the other side of the river, hoping to provoke the Demigryphs into perhaps charging and getting some wounds taken off due to the dangerous terrain. Now I parked the Mask right up behind them so that they did charge. They were pretty much going to take out the Chaos Furies, and I wanted her to be the one to catch that charge. With a 3-up ward save, plus her ability to dance and reduce strength, I figured she could definitely hold off the Demigryphs for as long as it would take me to get countercharge with the back end of my line. So I really wasn't worried about her popping from one attack unless the Demigryphs got incredibly lucky. But knowing my opponent, and he's a great guy, but his dice love to abandon him at the earliest sign of trouble, so I felt pretty safe in doing that. And then over here I moved my hammer unit of demonettes up so that they would be able to get a flank charge if things worked out with the Demigryphs and they carried over into the Mask. So I figured throwing, what is that, about half my army at the Demigryphs should probably liquefy them pretty easy. Of course, now looking at it, I realize that had that actually gone to plan, I probably would myself have been charged in the flank by the Inner Circle Knights. So I think it was kind of good that, well, what you'll see happen on my opponent's turn, he essentially splits and engages those units individually, which stops me from necessarily having opened up that flank to him. And then the second chariot, I just moved up to go around that lake and just provide him something to be a little concerned with on his flank, hoping that maybe he'd turn and come after him with the knights. Probably a pretty unlikely thing to happen, but I definitely wanted him to have something to think about other than necessarily that grand melee that was about to happen in the middle of the board. And so with my magic being completely uneventful and my stone thrower from the soul grinder scattering off uselessly, we moved straight into close combat. The Nurglings took another wound, but they managed to kill 5 of the 7 archers. However, with their detachment within 3 inches, or their parent unit within 3 inches of the building, and being stubborn from being in the building, they stuck and bounced me out. So I figured I'd be wasting at least one more turn sending Nurglings in to empty them out. If nothing else, it at least limits my opponent's ability to shoot anything else. So as I alluded to earlier, the start of Empire turn 2 had the Inner Circle Knights charge my large unit of demonettes. I don't remember if he took any wounds from the dangerous terrain. The Demigryph Knights charged the Chaos Furies. I believe they did take 1 wound from dangerous terrain. And then my opponent moved up the War Altar to be able to continue to support them there. And up to this point, we hadn't seen much in the way of magic from either side, but sad to say that was about to change. Realizing that my Nurglings were just going to do what they wanted to in that tower, my opponent chose to swift reform on his halberdier units so they could be ready to move out forward. And more importantly for this particular turn, so that the lore of Light Mage that had Shem's Burning Gaze could be facing forward into my Seekers. As you can see, magic decided to show up for the first time so far this game, and Shem's Burning Gaze pretty much one-shotted my unit of Seekers, allowing the Archer detachment a clear line of sight onto the rest of the board. And pretty much left an open area so that the only thing that was really stopping the halberdiers from getting into the fight was actually their own detachment of troops. So pretty much like I thought originally, my opponent was sort of getting tripped up by the terrain and his own detachment placement. And again, shooting was uneventful, so we went right into close combat. We dealt with the Inner Circle Knights first, and I pretty much knew my BSB Herald was totally able to get beat up just by a number of attacks. So when my opponent declined to make a challenge, I challenged, and the unit champion accepted. Now, I don't know if he realized sort of how much damage I was going to do with Strength 5, multiple wounds, always strikes first. But yeah, I pretty much cut the champion apart, killed him and did one additional carryover. The rest of my unit only killed one knight, and I lost 4 demonettes in response. Pretty sure he won combat, but I succeeded my leadership role and did not crumble at all from the demonic instability. So this picture is from Daemons turn 2 after my movement. As you can see, the Demigryphs pretty much made short work of the Furies and did overrun into the Mask. To support her, I charged up the smaller unit of Demonates, the Soul Grinder with the Mark of Nurgle, as well as the Seeker Chariot into the flank there. I tell you, I absolutely love that 10 movement chariot. It has such a huge threat area that my opponents just don't even see it coming when the thing moves a third of the way across the board almost and slams right into the flank for D6 plus 1 impact hits. So I figure I've got a pretty good shot here. Anything you do against the Demonate or the Demigryph Knights is going to be a slog, but should be one that I can win after a little while. Now, that dice with the 5 in the back does indicate, I believe, a battle prayer went on that gave them a 5-up ward save, so that's just going to stretch things even longer. But I've got a 5-up, so I figured I would do it. Then you can see I moved up my other chariot to threaten the War Altar, hopefully forcing it to move away so I didn't have to worry about it continuing to buff those troops. And again, the Nurglings rush the building, hoping to finally oust the archers there after a second round of combat. Really just doing this mainly because the Nurglings have nothing better to do, and I've never actually assaulted a building with a bunch of tiny demons, so I was kind of amused at that myself. So again, with no magic to speak of and no shooting at all, we go right into close combat. As you can see, this is after close combat. The Demigryphs did 1 wound to the Seeker Chariot, 1 wound to the Soul Grinder, and I did 2 wounds back with my charge and flanks and everything. I ended up winning the combat, but with the War Altar being a large target and his general on it, he was well within the area for it, so he succeeded the break test and stuck around. So we definitely will be moving on to continuing that combat during Empire's next turn. Now, I'm not entirely sure why I jumped straight to this picture. I guess I didn't snap one of the other battle there between his Inner Circle Knights and my Demonates. We ended up doing a little more damage, thinned out another 1 Circle Knight. Regardless, this is after my opponent's move at top of turn 3. I really wasn't expecting this, because I didn't realize that I had left just enough room for the War Altar to get in there and charge the Soul Grinder. But that's what he did to avoid my Slaanesh Chariot. I guess he figured, too, being up there in the mist, his battle prayers would be able to boost both units. I think he actually even took a wound from dangerous terrain going through. Maybe not, though, because I don't see the dive, but I seem to remember something goofy like that happening at this point. So I think he rushed in, too, towards that Soul Grinder, not kind of realizing how difficult it was going to be to take that thing out, as I've never fielded it before, and it's a beast. I wasn't doing a whole lot with it as far as inflicting wounds, but it was soaking up some terrible punishment and just standing there ready for more. So he's got an uphill battle on his hands at this point. And this shot shows that the Nurglings did finally take the tower. You see them celebrating there on the top. But what this is actually showing is the fact that my opponent decided to charge into the flank of my Seeker Chariot with his detachment. I guess mainly just to get them out of the way, so his halberdiers could go through, and he failed the charge. As you can see, he rolled 4. So I think that put him about an inch short. So he just staggered forward a little and still didn't manage to get out of the way of the parent unit. So that's pretty much holding him up there and preventing him from getting into any real battle with those guys at this point. And there's really not much that the cannon is doing. I think he misses my Seeker Chariot, or may have done only 1 wound. Okay, and in close combat, I declared another challenge, and to protect his BSB from me, my opponent fed my Herald his level 1 Light Mage, which I naturally chopped to pieces, and the rest of the unit managed to take away 1 more Inner Circle Knight, losing 2 Demonettes in the process. Again, he lost, but that leadership right there next to him with the BSB reroll kept him from breaking. So at this point I was thinking I'm going to have to sit here and chew through this entire unit, but now that the BSB is where I want it, I can just go ahead and throw into it with my Herald and hopefully take him out. Alright, and sorry for the blurry picture here, but this is post-combat in the large fight. You see I did kill 1 of the Demigryphs, and he killed 1 of my Demonates and added 1 more wound to the Soul Grinder. So, and I think I may have done 1 additional wound. So I think it was another one of those instances where I won, but he wasn't breaking. He was going to stand there for a while. and it looked like a long slog because he's got a high armor that I've got to deal with, and the dance that the mask is doing is actually lowering the demigryph's strength, so they're essentially not getting the benefit from the halberds they're all armed with. So again, pretty much we ended the round of close combat with a few more wounds here or there, but I'm starting to make some progress as models are actually starting to drop now. Okay, so movement for Demon turn 3. The Nurglings come out of the tower to threaten the flank of the Empire Halberdiers. The second Chariot of Slaanesh charges the cannon, pretty much to put it out of its misery at this point, because it wasn't hitting anything. I think it bounced one cannonball into the Chariot Seeker, or the Chariot, and rolled a 1 to wound. So, as predicted, my Herald made short work of his BSB. I only lost one Demonate in it, but those freaking knights, they were going to bound and determined to fight this out to the bitter end. I just couldn't break them, so pretty much realized I was just going to have to sit there and slaughter them. And this battle, we see the second demigryph fall, and one more wound goes on my chariot there. Now, this demigryph dying is very important because that actually removes the Soul Grinder and the Archlector on the War Altar from that combat. So they're not connected to that one, so they're fighting on their own at this point. That'll end up mattering because of the demigryph's wounds no longer counting for the Archlector. And you see I do lose one more Demonate, but they're just going, I mean, with that -1 to strength and my Demon Ward save, the demigryphs just aren't getting the job done, and it's going to end up costing them. And my turn ends with the Slaanesh Chariot destroying the cannon due to impact hits. Then it's going to turn and face the Halberdiers, which have actually, are actually about to get ready to swift reform and stare down the Nurglings that came out of the building this turn. So, only movement in top of turn 4 for Empire was charging that detachment successfully this time into the side of the chariot, but ultimately it was too little too late. My large Demonate unit finally killed the last Inner Circle Knight, and they broke. And because all that was left was the Standard Bearer, he died upon them breaking. The Demonettes then reformed so that they could get a look at the side of the War Altar. Then you can see on the main battle, without the War Altar's aid, the charmed life of the demigryphs was over. The demigryphs broke, managed to make it over the river. I rolled Piss Poor for both the Mask and the Demonates of Slaanesh, so neither were able to catch it. But it's going to be the start of my turn next, so my plan was to just use that 10 movement that the Mask has and chase the thing down, because either it'll run off the table edge or I'll catch it. Either way, that's going to be points for me. The chariot couldn't go anywhere because it's still held down by those that detachment of archers who only took one wound and are ready to get some vengeance on my chariot. So what you see here is the after the movement on Demon's turn 4. At the very top you can see I charge the Nurglings and the into the front of the Halberdiers, and the Slaanesh Chariot into the rear. not a good sandwich, but really they had nothing else to do. You can see that at the end of the last combat, I reformed the other chariot to face the archers, and I charged the flank of the war altar with my larger unit of demonettes. Now, the dumb thing here is that I lost one demonette and a wound off my herald from the dangerous terrain from the river. And you can't see the mask anymore because she did run down the Demigryph Knight. I think there's a picture of it in a couple of slides here. And then I positioned the blue scribes in the middle. This is the one turn they actually got some magic off. I chose Lore of Light or Life rather, and they got the +2 toughness buff on my Nurglings, and used the Lore of Life attribute to heal a wound off of the Soul Grinder. And again, you're just seeing the charges I made there, and the demonette or the mask claiming the Demigryphs. Now, as you can see, I defeated the Halberdiers, but this gave us a little bit of a pause because they broke in combat, but since I was on both sides of them, we weren't quite sure which way they would flee. Because theoretically it's supposed to be away from the largest unit, which would have been the Nurglings, and essentially run through the chariot, and I didn't roll high enough to catch them with the chariot, who I pursued with, but laying them out like that, if it had run that way because of the size of the chariot, I would have. So we weren't really sure how to deal with it. Eventually we just decided that they'd flee to the closest table edge, and again, and my chariot failed to follow them, but going that way, that was enough to run them off the board. So regardless, it was points to me, but I'm actually not sure how that's handled. So if anybody's watching this and wants to reply with a comment to let me know what the right way for them to have fled was, it would be very much appreciated. And here we see my Herald of Slaanesh firmly placing herself as the MVP of this game by just coming in and owning face on the Archlector. Again, that always strikes first for the rerolls, plus that multiple wounds on Strength 5 was just hard to deal with, and it's pretty much at that point my opponent's ward saves failed him, and she chopped him up, but good. And top of Empire 6, I think, might be turn 5. I kind of lost count at this point. It was getting late. The remaining 4 archers, after having killed my Slaanesh chariot last turn, charged into the side of my demonettes, I guess hoping for a little last bit of vengeance, but they're literally all my opponent has on the board, so it's when a 7-man detachment is all you've got, it's pretty much the end of things. And so no wounds were done on either side, strangely enough, but with 1 rank and the banner there, I actually won the combat by 1, and the archers ran and the demonettes chased them down. So I did find out it was turn 5, so that pretty much wrapped everything up with the game ending at top of turn 5. Next thing you see is just sort of a last picture of what the board looks like once everything wrapped up. Alright, so that wraps it up. We did have Demons of Chaos win on top of turn 5. I had a lot of fun with this game. And the more I play the Demons of Chaos, the more fun I have with them. I'm normally an Ogre player. That's my primary army. And they're all about just getting in there and smashing face with overwhelming power. And so it's nice to be able to play an army that really, the close combats are not that predetermined. You're talking with Slanesh, lower strength. Yeah, they have armor piercing, but it's strength 3 armor piercing on the demonettes. So it's not necessarily as set in stone. Now, I think with this fight, it was good. It did come to a slogfest just because we kind of got clustered in the middle there. I ultimately think that my opponent's biggest problem was just lack of units. He didn't really have much in the way of chaff. He had 3 big combat units, and one of those got blocked into a corner by his own detachments for most of the game. And I think there could have been a major difference made in that central combat had those halberdiers gotten in there. They probably would have made short work of the first chariot of Slanesh. It was stuck on the side, and then just crammed right into my demonettes there, and it would have been a totally different game. I pretty much talked to him after the game and suggested maybe working on thinking about some of his placement of the detachments and maybe using his formations and deployments a little better. But he's a new guy. He's never played fantasy before. He started with our club, and he's been doing Bretonia and Empire. But great guy, great sport. And he's one of the best opponents to play with long term because he does learn. Some people will just sit there and complain that they lost and never really take any lessons from their defeat. And Skip is definitely learning. He's a lot better than he was when we all first started playing. So I definitely give my kudos to him. And again, say it was an enjoyable game. We will continue to post these battle reports, so hope you guys enjoy it, and thanks for watching.